I want to start, Kaylee, with something that the president said about his third or fourth paragraph. This was a dark and excruciating night in our nation's capital and our nation's history, and a tragedy of terrible proportions. As one nation, we grieve for every precious soul that has been taken from us so suddenly. And we are a country, and really we are in mourning. This has really shaken a lot of people, including people, very sadly, from other nations who were on that flight. I mean, he played the role of consoler-in-chief.
He did. You know, Harris, I was watching this as we all were, 8:37 p.m. The news starts to break. You get a text message, I think a commercial aircraft just crashed. And you think that's impossible. You know, you must have this wrong. And you look on FlightAware, and no, it says that plane landed. Well, that was incorrect information. So you're piecing this together. You know, and then my husband looked at me and he said, Kaylee, think about the passengers' relatives waiting at the airport. Think about when I come to pick you up and I'm waiting there, you're coming back from a business trip and I'm sitting there waiting for you and you're sending text messages in the air. And then I go on and I see this clip from this young man and he shows his text messages to the camera that he has just had with his wife. And he shows where they drop off. And he said, I am praying that they are picking her up out of the river right now, the river you're looking at right now, the Potomac. And we know President Trump confirmed there are no survivors, but this is the hell these individuals are being put through. Bill Melugin said he knew one of the individuals whose wife was on the plane. She's a mother of a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old. We pray for these families, and to have a president come out as consoler-in-chief in a moment like this, it's so important for the nation. You know, Todd, it's not lost on anybody that this is a 3 a.m. type of situation. It happened at 9 p.m. They searched all night long. And from what sources have told me, it began to be more of a recovery mission before dawn. I mean, they knew that the cold water, so on and so forth. So you see Pete Hegseth, you see Sean Duffy, defense and transportation respectively, the president at that lectern. This is not like what we were used to the last 4 years.
And think about how quickly we received tangible answers following the horrific event. To your point, Pete Hegseth got up there and basically acknowledged the altitude issue that President Trump mentioned prior. And to have a Secretary of Defense come out there and acknowledge something like that less than 24 hours. I mean, there are still incidents from the prior administration we still don't have answers for. Now, you may not like the answers, but the fact of the matter is we're receiving answers, we're receiving accountability, and that's what the American people want and demand. Life isn't perfect. This is a perfect example of that. But sometimes we just need the answers. We need that transparency so that we can move forward as a nation.
You know, Emily, I think about the 67 people who died, the 3 military in the chopper, young U.S. skating stars of the future, coaches, the U.S. skating world affected by this. And you heard President Trump talking about Russia and other countries not ready yet to release some of those other countries confirmed. You can understand these would have been very young passengers, some of them.
And it reminds me of that saying that says, to the world you may be one, but to me you are the world, where the reality is that every loss of life is devastating and unfathomable to the family of love that surrounds that person that perished. And every plane flight, to your point, represents always an international sort of conglomerate, right? Every plane in the United States represents a really very diverse group of people. And the fact that when it has sports teams or certain condensed groups, it just really has a devastating impact on them. And I'd like to point out for a moment that between 2006 and 2020, the Department of Defense reported over 5,000 service members that died in training, which, you guys, that represents 32% of all service members' fatalities, meaning they died at twice the rate in combat as they do in training. And I know and have full faith in Secretary Hegseth that amount will start to reduce, that will not be the reality moving forward, because the reality is when you have a family member that signs up for service, you always think about them making the ultimate sacrifice. For it to happen in a training accident is just tragic.
With civilians.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. I want to go now to Lucas Tomlinson, who is in Alexandria, Virginia. And Lucas, you have been on the story. Hour by hour, we learn more. Bring us up to speed.
Do you have the bites?
Lucas, are you with us? All right, let's go back to Lucas. I didn't get to Lauren Simonetti, and I want to get your top-line thoughts right now.
Terrific. You know, it happened late last night. I couldn't sleep. I was chilled by how did this happen with when you first hear about it. How does a military helicopter crash into a civilian airplane? And then you think of how cold, near freezing, that water was. And then I heard Sean Duffy, the transportation secretary, come out this morning at 7:30 and say, we found the fuselage. It was in 3 pieces in waist-deep water. I said, oh, that could potentially be encouraging. Maybe they can get to any of the victims a little bit easier, but sadly, that's not the case. It looks like everybody has died. It is just so tragic, and it raises so many questions. I'm encouraged, what everyone is talking about here, that Pete Hegseth, defense secretary, said, a mistake was made. We are on it. We are on it, and we will give you the information when we have it.
Yeah, I mean, to me, this puts a fine point on how much faster you have to confirm the rest of the president's cabinet. I mean, you got to move on. All hands on deck is what he put, and we need all hands. Lucas Tomlinson, again, we have worked out a couple of technical bugs, and with the grace of the audience, we appreciate seeing you, Lucas.
Well, Harris, it appears that newly installed Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth took responsibility for the crash. He said, as you just mentioned, a mistake was made. He read out the ranks of those killed, the 3 killed aboard the Black Hawk helicopter. He said the 2 pilots, an Army captain and Chief Warrant Officer, 2nd grade, were killed, along with a staff sergeant, likely the crew chief on board. We also heard from President Trump, who said that the helicopter should not have been flying at the same altitude as American Airlines Flight 5342 when that collision occurred at approximately 400 feet. Generally speaking, helicopters in this area normally fly with a max ceiling of about 100 feet. So there's questions about why was that helicopter flying so high. We also heard from the president saying, was there a communications issue between the tower at Reagan National Airport and that helicopter, and why those pilots did not see that airliner, who were on short final about just moments before landing at Reagan National Airport, flying from Wichita, Kansas, with 64 on board, 60 passengers and 4 crew members, including members of the U.S. figure skating team. We also heard of a couple Russian nationals on that, too. We also heard from President Trump that he wants to get those remains, those bodies, back to Russia. Being out here for the last few hours, I can say that the recovery effort is ongoing. We've seen low-flying U.S. Park Police helicopters combing the banks here along the Potomac, looking for bodies, looking for debris. There's questions about why did this collision happen at approximately 9 p.m. last night. You had the American airliner flying from the south along the Potomac north to Reagan National, had to bank to get to runway 33. That represents a point on the compass, 330, so a northwesterly heading. You have to bank over Bolling Air Force Base. Behind me, the Black Hawk helicopter is flying to the south, coming from the direction of Washington, D.C., or perhaps on a run to Langley. Of course, it's a very busy area, ladies. You have, Black Hawk helicopters routinely flying in the air corridor, both on the Potomac River behind me, also above I-395 when they're flying to the Pentagon, to the CIA headquarters. Of course, HMX-1, Marine One flies from Quantico to the base, to the White House, of course. There's a lot of questions. There was questions about night vision goggles. A reporter asked the president about that. Why were those pilots wearing nods, night vision? A former Marine Cobra pilot told me it's unlikely that pilots would be wearing night vision goggles because of the ambient light from Alexandria, from Arlington, Virginia, from the airport in just this area. But we heard from Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth on a video exclusively obtained by Fox News saying this was an annual nighttime flight. Literally sounded like a check ride. A flight to be seen, practicing flying at night. And so there's questions about the hours that these pilots had. We did hear from Secretary Hegseth saying that these were, fairly experienced pilots.
Right.
But we also heard from President Trump in the briefing room saying that DEI could have played a role in the crash without offering evidence.
All right, Lucas, you mentioned something that I caught there having to do with how many hours they had flown, and that's new to the conversation. I'm sure that will be looked at as well. Thank you for the report. Kayleigh, the most time spent on this would seem to be, how do we tell, and to your point, Todd, how do we tell the public as much as we can? That's a new feeling.
Yeah.
But it also, you can't change the facts. So you've got the commander-in-chief there giving us what is not good news.
Yeah, you have a president that, to the advantage of the country, will tell you where his mind is at any given moment. I mean, if you get on the phone with President Trump, you go into the Oval Office, it doesn't matter who you are. You're the Secret Service agent guarding him. He'll tell you where his head's at, of course, within the bounds of classified information rules. But he will share with the American public what we all see. We all watched last night. I counted for 36 seconds where it appeared that the helicopter was going straight towards the plane. Of course, it's one image. You don't see altitude in those images. But he tells you what everyone's thinking. And to come out as directly and give the American people the few answers he can, I think it's an important thing. The last time this happened, the Colgan air crash, that was 2009. Think about this. This hasn't happened in 2 decades. There was another plane that crashed in the Potomac, 1982. 75 individuals died. This is so exceedingly rare. And if you ask me, will I take a commander-in-chief who tells me where his head is at versus one who will just shy away from the camera, I think the former is better than the latter.
Well, and if I'm remembering correctly, and please correct me if I'm wrong, I think the previous crashes were unlike this one because they didn't involve military and civilian.
They didn't. This is unique in that way,
I mean, this is making history, unfortunately, in that way, as I understand it. Todd, there were some politics that came up. The president, you heard Lucas Tomlinson talking about what the priorities have been for hiring across the government and how he wants to realign those priorities.
Yeah, there was somewhat of an implication from the president and from the vice president, we should add, that directly or indirectly, potentially DEI may or may not have been involved. And he put that out there. And obviously, that is something that does need to be looked into. But he also acknowledged at the very end, right before we came on air here on Outnumbered, he said he was not blaming the air traffic control. But we all need to take a step back and realize, regardless of the reason, our air traffic control in our country has been understaffed and overworked for a very long time now. So no matter the cause of that, we do need to address this, whether or not it was involved in this incident. It's a problem. We don't want the second incident to happen. We don't want to be doing one of these and have air traffic control be the reason. We do need to get to the bottom of it. And there are questions that were raised. And Harris, I'd just like to raise one more question that you actually brought up on your show that I thought was fascinating in your discussion with John Scott. Apparently, there are 2 different frequencies with which the military communicates with air traffic control. And on one of them, there was an acknowledgement by the helicopter pilot that he did see the plane. However, the question remains, was that a plane or the plane in question? It appears, if you heard our colleague John Scott with you, it appears it was a plane, another plane, and not the plane involved. Yeah. But that's one of the major things we need to get to the bottom of.
You see 3 when we show that one image that Kayleigh's talking about. I mean, one was decidedly higher than the other, but we don't know with night goggles on or whatever was going on inside the chopper that allowed them to say, yeah, we've got a plane in sight. We don't know which plane. And you were talking about those frequencies. UHF is the military, VHF is the civilian.
Right.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kayleigh McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.